What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now today we're in the shop. A lot's been going on lately. I've been busy working, so I haven't made many videos. You know, you guys got your last few sledding videos, but that's been about it. We did a few other things. We did a bunch of work on our Super Duty. You might see that in a video upcoming or not. I don't really know, guys, but today we're bringing back this project. So I've actually been working on the Ranger quite a bit here and there. As you can see, it's actually sitting at ride height, actually a little higher than ride height, but the cab, everything is on four wheels. So if you guys don't know what this is an early 2000s Ford Ranger body and chassis, but pretty much custom full tube, you know, roll cage, and then custom 4-link suspension, all that. These, if you're curious, these are just ride height links that I made so I can get it up, and that actually holds our cab and chassis up from the axles. So you guys have seen this, you know, when we first started this project. I had a 429 Ford that I was going to put in it, and we kind of talked back and forth about that. And for what we're going to do with this being a rock bouncer, mud bog kind of, you know, off-road rig, it's going to have really big tires, and I want it easy to drive. I want it fun. So the first thing that came to mind was a Cummins. So I know I mentioned that every now and again. You know, should we come and swap it? Service truck's behind me, but there's a truck right here. You guys ready? We finally have a truck to put a heart into the Ranger. This beauty, 2001 Dodge 3500. It's got a 5.9 Cummins 24 valve. It's also got a 6-speed transmission, 4-wheel drive. This thing is pretty mild, 514,000 K. There's a Laramie, there's a dually. You know, it's just the basics that we need. Got a lot of good parts on it. Engine runs really well. I picked this up today in Edmonton, drove it out here. You know, we're doing the speed limit and then some, and this thing does really well at highway speeds. Let's give you guys a listen. Well, this escalated quickly. There you go, guys. Motor is out. Trans is coming next. This thing's actually looking not too bad. Gonna have to reseal the front cover, the front structure, do a few odds and ends. I left most of the harness on it and left it mostly together just for ease of mounting it for now. And then, of course, we're gonna pull this thing apart, clean it, fresh it. But we got lots of time before we got to do that. It's getting dark, so we're going to fast forward tomorrow once we get the T case and the transmission out. And then in this video, you guys will see this mounted into the Ranger. Trust me. So we got a few things we got to do on this thing before we put it in the Ranger. Yes, the Ranger's outside, and it's ready to accept its new engine. So all the oil, all the greasy parts, we're just going to go ahead. We're going to give this thing a quick clean. Try and get it as clean as possible just before it goes in. Now, yes, this thing will come back out a couple times and we'll actually refresh the motor at some point. But, like, just look at all the grossness on this. So I'm going to do my best to clean it. And then, like, this power steering pump, it's got to come off. There's a couple other things that I got to take off of it as well. Fuel pump, the lift pump, this has got to come off, and then of course we might actually pull that ECU off as well here in a little bit. But yeah, we had a lot of little things to get done on this thing, but she's looking good. I'm also going to drain the oil, just so if I have to pull the oil pan or anything, we're good to do so. So yeah, and then we got our Ranger. I know you guys have never seen this thing outside the way it's sitting right now, but look at that beauty. Look at how big it is compared to the 3500. It's on jack stands, and that thing's quite tall. It's pretty sweet, guys. I'm super excited. I'm gonna get the engine kind of prepped, then I'm gonna rip the tranny out of the Dodge, and then we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna bolt these things up. We might have a little bit of shit here we gotta cut out, so the engine might go in and out a couple times today, but that's just the cost of doing business. So, well, here we go, guys. First look at it with the Cummins in place, somewhat. We got a little bit to do here. I went ahead, I stripped a bunch of shit off the motor, but see right there on the cowl, we got a bunch to cut out. So I gotta pull this back out. Of course, easy enough to do for me, but it's actually gonna put us in a lot of good spots here, and we'll be able to put this thing in. It'll be really good, but we got to get the engine as high as possible. I know that seems a little weird, but we want to have as much up travel on the suspension. So we got to get the engine up, we want to have clearance, and the higher we can get it, the better. And then eventually we'll just sling the motor in, the motor and trans in, and then we'll actually lower it before we build mounts, just because I want to build mounts with the suspension at full droop. But to get it in and out, we have it raised. It makes life easier. So yeah, let's go ahead. I've got a lot done. We got the truck sitting now back on our stands. So I went ahead, I lowered the suspension. The reason I want to do this is because mounting the engine and trans, now it's sitting in there crooked, but we got to straighten that out again. I've just been kind of dicking around trying to get, we got to figure out our oil pan clearance. So this is literally at full suspension up travel. So yeah, it's close to the pan, but we want it as close to not hitting the pan as possible. So we're gonna do a little bit there, and now we'll build our engine mounts. I'll see if I can't bring the engine back some. It all depends once our transmission's in, which we don't have. We gotta pull that out of this truck now. So we did a few other things. You know, I clearanced out a bunch of this cowling. I'm trying my best to leave the factory wiper motor and the factory wipers. It might work out, it might not. I might actually just make the right hand side one dead and then only have the driver's side work, you know. I don't know, that's not the biggest problem right now. And if we have to run without windshield wipers, you know, that's not a problem. So doing really good, we're making progress. Let's get the T-case transmission out, and then we can get that into the truck. Engine slung in, T-case transmission hanging. So we haven't built mounts yet. What I'd love to do is this is going back in the garage now. We're done outside, so motor's pretty much the height that I need it. It's been up, it's been down. You got a little bit of crank showing on the bottom, which is okay. Now of course it's way ahead, we're gonna have to move it back a little bit. Some of the geometry is gonna change, but basically the center of the crank, I want it center with this bumper pad with the winch sits on, and then of course it'll be level, and then it's got a little bit of a rake to it, but not too bad. Gonna try and keep everything almost as level as possible, but have a little bit of slope for the oil to drain. So what you might be thinking, how much up travel do we have? Well, right now we're sitting a little above ride height, but we have 18 inches of clearance, or not 18 inches of clearance, but from our frame down to the top of the axle is 18 inches. Now, when I had this thing collapse, before I let the motor down 3 inches, I had 4.5 inches. So now we have about 7 inches between the frame to the bottom. So realistically, from here up, we have 10 inches of up travel. And this suspension has a lot more droop going down. Would I like more up travel? Yes, but this is a big motor. There's not a whole lot of room unless it was way back and this was way further. But really, we're doing good. We're a little in front of the axle, but we're not too bad. That's why I'm going to bring it back. I want the front of the block to be front with the axle. So yeah, whole lot of progress in a very short time. I picked this truck up yesterday, drove it home, pulled the motor, now we pulled the trans. Ranger's outside, now it's all mounted in there. This thing's able to come off jack stands, hood's going back on this, put it all back together, and out to pasture it goes. So, woo! This video ain't done here yet. I'm gonna get the mounts made and then I'll show you guys that. We're in the shop. We got this thing back in last night and I've been hauling ass on this morning. So big things have happened. We actually have the transmission mounted. So the transmission mount's done. This is where it's gonna live. As you can see, our tail shaft is past our 4 links, so that'll work out really well. Now, rear drive shaft is going to be kind of short and kind of steep, but that's also okay. You know, it's not going to be the end of the world. But this is our transmission mount, guys. Just utilized the tube that we had. I put another bar across there, and then just a really nice piece of 3/8 plate. Drilled it out, and that's our mount. Now the mount, I'll end up, when I finish up the 4-link ears, we'll actually incorporate some more into that. There's been a lot of things that I have to get figured out before I do all the finishing, and then I can just tie everything together when it comes to the metal work. Another thing, this is where the engine's gonna live. So we actually moved it back quite a ways. As you can see, we got almost 6 inches, well, 4 to 5 inches in front between the dampener to our front bar, so that's perfect. And then we've been working on motor mounts. So we actually have the first motor mount on the engine. Now I'll just have to come off the frame here, come to that. Now I knew you guys would want to see what our motor mounts are, because, you know, that's part of the channel. Another thing, check this little welder out. I picked this up. This is now like the 3rd time I've been using this. Mid-stick 202, nice and simple. Absolute beauty of a welder. I love this thing. It welds almost as good as like a 252 for what I'm doing. And of course, we had to pick up a new shade. This has the clear 2.0. Incredible, the view out of this thing. Great welding helmets. I had the original and we had to upgrade for in the shop, but really good welding helmet by Miller if you're looking for something. This is our engine mount. So these little bushings, I don't remember what they're from. I think they're off a Western Star or something. But with the idea of heavy trucks, because I work on heavy equipment and heavy trucks all the time, a lot of the motor mounts are this style. So, you know, like factory motor mounts, they always have like a crossbar through them, and the weight is in the bushing, and like the bushing has to hold it up and down. All motor mounts are basically like that. But in the heavy world, what they do is they have, the motor mounts are flat. So this is basically the way motor mounts built, and then you just have rubber bushings between, and I'm actually going to stack 2 and then have like one inset into whatever mount that I do on the frame. So we'll have about a 1/2 inch of bushing, which is plenty on this. I probably could get away with just this. But that's the way a lot of companies do that on heavy trucks. And if you don't think it'll take the abuse, you don't think it'll take the twist, just look up like heavy truck pulling and you'll see like ton of frame twist. And the motor mounts are holding, you know, an engine that's 1,500 pounds plus 2,000 foot-pounds of torque. This little beauty is a lot lighter and it's not gonna get there. You know, I'm hoping to have like 600 horse out of this, and then we might be like 1,100, but really small compared to the big trucks. And these style mounts work. So, really cool. I want to get these finished, but coming super close. Well guys, we got no straps on the motor anymore. We finally have the front engine mounts done. So this thing is mounted. We got our trick ones off the engine, and then I built some off the frame as well. So 3/16 off the frame. Why? Because that's what I had for steel sitting around. And then this is 1/4 inch and then 1/4 inch angle iron that we then cut and then made our other mount. So pretty sweet, guys. They're both symmetrical, but this motor is nice and solid. Like if I grab it and shake it, the whole frame moves. You can see there's a little bit of movement in the trans there. So with that, I can now order just a factory Dodge for a 3,500, get a new trans mount. Sorry, this thing's just cooling down. I do not want to shut it off. But yeah, check that out. Motor mounts turned out really, really good. I'm super happy with them. So this is where this sucker's gonna live now. Of course, we had to throw the shifter in it, just why not, boys? But now we can go ahead, we start building firewall, figuring out where everything's gonna live. Get our pedals mounted, which we have tons of room for the brake booster and clutch master cylinder and everything there. And then of course our throttle cable we should be able to use off the Dodge. It'll just go ahead to our pump. And then we should be able to figure out exhaust. We'll just walk around here. Drive shaft. Drive shaft will be real nice. Nice and short. But the exhaust, the turbo leaves us to a point where we will be able to 90 and then put a hood stack so it'll come out right about there. So super, super awesome, guys. I'm so happy with this. The only other thing is we could do like a side dump, bring it down out the fender, but we don't really have a lot of fender and a lot of this has to go. So yeah, come back for the next video. I don't know when it's gonna be, I don't know what it's gonna be on, but of course we are now continuing. You guys know this project's not dead. I've been saying this for a long time, but it's taken a lot of money and a lot of time to get to this point, and there was a lot of other things that I've already got collected. That's why this thing could go in as fast as it did. So super happy with the progress, guys. Thanks for watching the video if you made it to this end. Yeah, woohoo!